Good evening, everyone. My name is Alan Smason, and welcome to NOLA Theater Talk. This is part of the NOLA Theater Facebook folk group, if you will, the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group. And we also not only broadcast live stream our talks on Mondays and Fridays to this particular channel for the NOLA Theater Folk group, but we also broadcast it to the NOLA, the theatercriticism.com Facebook page. Those two. Now, later on, you'll be able to catch these broadcasts archived on the YouTube channel that I have under my own name, Alan Smason. Again, just look it up on YouTube and you'll find our archived talks. Tonight, we have a really exciting gathering. Tonight is going to be a pleasure for me. We have a number of music directors who are here. And again, a lot of people may not exactly know who we have in our room tonight, in our studio. But by the time this evening ends, I think you all are going to know all the major music directors. Not everybody who's a music director in New Orleans, of course. We can only get so many people in. But we're going to have a great number of people that we want to introduce to you. First off, I'm going to try to do this alphabetically if I can. And I'm going to start off by introducing you to Donna Clavijo. Now, that's Dr. Donna Clavijo, but we're going to just call her Donna, if that's all right, if everybody doesn't mind. She is a collaborative pianist, a vocal coach, and educator. She's performed in both classical and musical theater productions in New Orleans for the New Orleans Opera, Le Petit Theater, Loyola University, and the Jefferson Performing Arts Society. She earned a master's from Loyola University in piano performance in May of 2002 and a doctorate in collaborative piano from Arizona State University in May of 2007. Now, she did tour with the Arizona Opera in 2000. Let's see, when was that? 2006. She was a music director of the arts educational program there, and then held teaching positions at Loyola University and the New Orleans Baptist Seminary. So again, she is not only a qualified music director, but also a well-established teacher. She has maintained a private piano studio in her home for the past 40 years and still presently teaches and does freelance coaching. Donna is also the sacred music director and organist at St. George's Episcopal. Without any further ado, let me welcome once again, everyone, Donna Clavijo. Let's see if we can get her her banner up that I had made up ahead of time and then so easily lost. So let's get that up there. Yes. All right, Donna, welcome to the show. And again, I see you have a visitor with us too.
Yeah, I've just got my little rescue dog, my little Winky, my little one-eyed baby. She's up and down off my lap. She always is.
All right. Well, again, most notably, you have been working with the Jefferson Performing Arts Society and working hand in hand with Dennis Asaf. Right. And I was talking earlier in the day with Dennis, and he's making sure that he sees the show tonight. So in any event, we want to talk about the differences a little bit later on between what a musical director does and what a conductor does, because he sort of has the baton and you sort of do a lot of the other groundwork that there is behind it. So we're going to talk about that, but let's bring in our next music director, and that would be none other than Leonard Raybon. Leonard is the director of choir at Tulane University and the director of music at Rain Memorial United Methodist Church. That's the actual name for it. He's most readily known as a frequent musical director and conductor at Summer Lyric Theater at Tulane, where he's conducted or starred in 47 different shows. That's fantastic. Now, he earned a DMA at LSU, a master's at the University of York in England, and a bachelor's degree at William Carey University. Leonard enjoys creating what he calls helpful methodologies for his students. And he can maybe go into this a little bit about his vowels in hand system that he has developed. Basically, it's a way of taking the mystique out of choral vocal unification. It was published, by the way, in Voice and Speech Review in 2017. He's shared that with a number of people. He has a new project on Centaur Records about to come out. It's called Sacred 9 Project, and it's a vehicle for his current research and that has to do with the darker parts of music history and seeing what lessons can be learned from them. And so, without any further ado, let's bring Leonard into our stream tonight. And again, welcome. Again, I'm going to try to make everybody feel a little comfortable. We had the JPAS background there, and as we move towards welcoming you into our show, I'm hoping this is the right one. Let's see if it is for the background. I think this might be right. Well, nope. There we go.
Rivertown.
There it is.
That's home.
There we go. Home. That's it. Dixon Hall. And so to make everybody feel a little bit comfortable, we've got those backgrounds. All right. Welcome, Leonard. And again, we'll talk a little bit because unlike Donna, you do actually do both the conducting and the music directing often. So we're going to get a little bit of an idea about what that's all about. Let's now welcome our next guest for tonight. And that would be Alan Payne. Alan, we're just going to call you Alan Payne because guess what? We have absolutely no bio on you. So I guess I'm going to have to say Alan works at Rivertown from time to time as a music director, although has been concentrating on being an actor in more recent times. And so again, let's see if we can bring in the Rivertown background that we had used earlier. I think it might be, is this the one here? Is that the one? Yes, that's Rivertown, isn't it? Alan, able to hear us? Alan's freezing. Okay, that is why we always test our. I can barely hear you, Alan.
What are you showing?
That's a little bit better, a little bit louder though. You got to speak really up loud. Okay. So welcome to our program. Again, we can just barely hear you in the background. So you might want to get that. You're using a phone, I bet you, right? Using a phone?
I think it's turned up. I'm using the phone. That's all the technology.
That's all the technology you have. Well, we're probably not going to talk too much to you tonight because of that, but that's all right. You'll be around. We'll hopefully get any answers that we have from. All right, back to the introductions, if I may. We want to bring in next Natalie True. Natalie has degrees in music education and violin performance. She teaches choir. That's better, whatever it is. She teaches choir at St. Martin's Episcopal School, and previously taught choir and strings at Lusher and McGee.
Oh.
There we go. Very nice. And we can hear you now very well, Alan. She also teaches approximately 20 different private students on a weekly basis, virtually, of course, and has music directed for Le Petit, JPAS, and numerous other schools and theater companies around the city. Please, let's welcome Natalie True to our gathering tonight, and make sure there we are. And again, Natalie, we're going to get to you, but again, I want to thank you. You have complimented us. Donna, I think, is very helpful that Donna's not the only lady in the room tonight. One of the things we're talking about tonight is diversity, and we want as many ladies in our studio as possible. Because it is no longer a man's game for music direction, is it not?
No, it's not.
Right.
All right. And then we're going to bring in our last guest. And again, that, of course, will be none other than Jefferson Turner. Jefferson started music directing in 1998, first with children's theater and then branching out to other kinds of theater pursuits. In the past 22 years, he's worked with most of the local theaters and many local companies on productions from full-scale classical musicals such as Me and My Girl at Rivertown to contemporary masterpieces like Next to Normal and Fun Home, both with Southern Rep. He's music directed and accompanied solo cabaret shows, which I've been privileged to see, which include Amy Alvarez, Janet Shea, Ricky Graham. And he's also arranged and composed music for original productions. For the past 3 years, Jefferson has been associated with Summer Lyric Theater at Tulane as well, with Hairspray, Ragtime, and Matilda. He graduated from Loyola University with a bachelor's in music in 1999, and currently he's the chair of the musical theater department at the New Orleans Center for the Creative Arts, better known as NOCA. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jefferson Turner.
Hello.
And we have a full house tonight. This is as many people as
Gang's
our
all
platform
here.
will get. Now, Jefferson, you mentioned Rivertown, so we already got Rivertown up. So hopefully that'll make you feel comfortable. But if you really want to and insist, I'll go back and get the background for some lyric too. But first off, I want to thank you all. This is a very well qualified group. But I doubt very seriously that all of you have ever gotten together in one place before. Am I correct?
Probably
That's
not.
probably true.
Yeah.
I've had the privilege of working with both Natalie and Alan within the past year or so. And I've known Donna
And Donna.
forever.
You worked with Donna.
Yeah,
too.
we were all together.
And
Yeah,
Donna, of course, that's right.
Yeah.
But not.
But it is a small world.
Yeah. So, but the thing is that what I'm basically alluding to, there was a famous film that was done several years ago while all were alive, and I believe it was Toots Washington, Alan Toussaint, and Professor Longhair, and it was called "Piano Players Rarely Ever Play Together," and it was sort of a note saying basically music directors like you would never really have a real opportunity to get together unless you're doing some kind of collaboration, and it's so rare that you'd have different music directors, although I'm sure on occasion you will. So let's start the ball rolling a little bit. First off, if I may, I'm going to ask everybody sort of a question. Let's see if we can. The beauty of this platform is that everybody can be seen and heard, but I'm going to try to let everybody answer the first question individually, and then we'll take it from there and see if we can toss up a couple more. So I'm going to ask Donna first off to start the ball rolling. Donna, obviously, being a music director has a lot of responsibility. Can you tell me what it is that you do in terms of your process when you know that you have Carolina Change to do? What is it that you do? Do you get the music first and then you start working on it? How is that process actually accomplished from beginning to end?
Well, for me, first of all, it is knowing the piece. I mean, you have to know the piece. You have to have the time invested in studying the score. You have to have the time invested in understanding who the composers, who the lyricists are, as much as you can possibly glean from it to be able to know all the nuances. And I honestly feel that there is just as much nuance in musical theater as there is in opera. And I think that part of the reason that I probably enjoy musical theater so much is because I've had some of that experience in opera, a lot of that experience in opera through the years. And, doing that teaches you to find it wherever. So my process usually is really just, I got to know the score. I got to know, the parts. I have to know who's singing those parts, because how one person interprets a major role is very different from how another person interprets a major role. So there's a great deal of study that I think happens in the very beginning, and in order to be able to execute that, you have to know who you're working with, and that changes. I mean, you can do one show 1 year, and maybe you do 3 years later, and you've got a whole different crew of people that you're working with. How you work, it changes with the people that you work with. But you really have to know everything about the piece itself. You have to know the time period it came from. You have to understand all of those nuances. And that takes a little bit of study prior to. It's never, I don't find from a piano standpoint that it's ever difficult to play anything that's music theater. Unless it borders on the edge of being close to an operatic style. And I think the closest I've ever been to that was Hunchback of Notre Dame, or West Side Story. Those two, both of those to me felt like pianistically, there were a lot of very tricky challenges.
Alan, you were in Hunchback, weren't you? Weren't you?
Me? Hunchback?
Yeah.
No.
You weren't? You're okay.
I know I was in the audience for that one.
That was
I
an
enjoyed that.
outstanding one of the greatest
That
pieces
was a
I've ever
fantastic
seen.
show. I loved it.
Yeah,
It was.
It was the only time, as I recall, that Stephen Schwartz and Alan Menken worked together on a project, and it was just glorious. I think you had, if I'm not mistaken, 22 people in the chorus. Is that about right?
Well, yeah, but we also had the whole. See, there was a different problem there because not only did we have to work with the people that were in the chorus, but we also had to work with having the choir. So there was an extra added element of collaboration with the singing, the choir, and that's what added, and all of that to me always has to do with where they're placed on the stage. Do we hear them well enough? What are they?
Right.
So there's a lot to work with, and then I think another element that comes along with it is what is the stage director's vision. There's a very important collaboration, I think, that happens between what the music director does and what the stage director does. I've been very lucky because all the stage directors that I've worked with here in town have been incredibly collaborative people. I think that's where we are, is that we recognize that it's a team and everybody has to be on the same page in order to really make it work. But you got to do your homework in order to be able to work those things out with everybody who's involved.
Leonard,
really,
all right, let me just, if I may, thank you, Donna. Just basically what Donna had talked about, is it pretty much the same for you with your process in terms of the way you tackle, a particular project that you're going to, know about? And I might ask, since you do so many at Summer Lyric and you're probably familiar with the music, etc., does the music on the printed sheet sometimes surprise you as to what you're supposed to do with it?
I thought what Donna had to say was very valuable, and you do have to do a lot of score study. You have to know, I've even down to any word that's unfamiliar to me, and that happens a lot in musical theater. I write it down, and I make sure I look it up. Words I don't know how to pronounce because I've never seen the word before, I look that up. A lot of score study. I need to be able to sing through all the parts. I need to be able to, even though I do have an accompanist sometimes. I like to play the whole show. So I practice at the piano most of the time to make sure I can play the entire show. About the about the musical scores, I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but the first thing that I thought of when you asked the question was, are you surprised with what you see on the score? And truly, I mean, anybody in this panel can tell you that what you get in the published score can be very messy, and even messy, surprisingly, for shows that are known and loved. Like I just recently did She Loves Me, and you get to the orchestra night and there'll be pieces that are missing, or the violin is not with the clarinet because their parts are just simply different, and they never get corrected after decades of being in the canon. So in that regard, you always have to be kind of in defensive mode, and when you're on the podium the night of the orchestra rehearsal, you have to just be ready for anything, and just be able to try to solve problems on your feet.
And Jefferson, you have the honor of having that same experience that Leonard has, of walking out with everybody cheering you on at I mean, there's really nothing like it at Dixon Hall, right?
It's honestly, one of the reasons why I like music directing is that I don't really want a spotlight on me. I want to be able to do the work and be a part of the show and part of the experience and everything without having to actually take a bow. So for Summer Lyric, I would. It's a tradition that the music director comes out, that the conductor comes out in a spotlight and everything. Personally, I would do just as well without it.
Well, it's never going to happen to me. I can promise you that. So enjoy it while you can. That's the way I look at it. Natalie, again, you're probably soaking up all this good stuff, etc. Tell me before we talk to Alan about his process. What it is that you're doing that maybe differs from what they were talking about? Is there anything that you feel that you do differently in any way, or is it always sort of the same?
It's basically the same. The one thing I would say is, like Leonard mentioned, I do sit down and I'm playing through the show. If I know I'm going to be conducting the show, sometimes even if I'm not, I will conduct through the show, just because it's fun. And but yeah, knowing the score forwards and backwards. Apologies, my cat is trying to make an appearance. And knowing any words that I, looking up text, looking up lyrics, reading the script. That's part of it, I think. But then at the same time, going into rehearsal, sometimes as a music director, or in the case of like JPass, which we'll talk to Donna about, if Dennis is coming in to conduct, we may not be as involved in like the audition process. I know when we were working on 42nd Street, which sadly had to be postponed, I was able to play for some of the auditions, but I wasn't at all of them. But Dennis and Kenny Beck, who was the director, they kind of were going to have the final say with who was cast in the show. So I showed up at the first rehearsal not really knowing who I was going to get. So you can be as prepared as possible. And then luckily, in most cases, you have a cast that supports that preparation, but there is some fluidity throughout the rehearsal process as well. But yeah, just doing your research and knowing that score forward and backward and cues and as much as you can going in, because then you can focus on the actors you're working with.
And you confided in me one thing that Donna's never going to probably be jealous of you of, and that is that you really enjoy conducting. That's something that you really enjoy.
In the musical theater, yes. I have toyed with the idea of going back to school for it, but then I think about all the work and all the money.
You should. It's funny, Alan, I'll add to that from the standpoint of conducting. And Leonard is the only one that I have not worked with from a conducting standpoint. But I've worked with the other four. Jefferson, I know we worked somewhere a long time back. And the beauty of all three of them is that they're all consummate artists, and that's a delight too. When you're working with other professionals in the field that can do more than one thing. The difference with myself is that before I was even directing music theater, I was a singer and I was a pianist as well. So having those skill sets has always allowed me to do very well at what I did. I just never picked up conducting. I mean, I conduct my church choir, but I just never jumped into that because I was involved in other things. But it is delightful to know for three of these people that I've worked under each one of them from a conducting standpoint, and all of them are excellent at what they do. And that's a real blessing. That's a real benefit to our community as a whole.
I'll send you flowers later,
and now
Donna.
That's true.
Thank you, dear.
Mr. Payne.
Love you, Donna.
Mr. Payne.
It's true.
Yeah.
Now, Alan, you're a little bit different insofar, right? When you do a lot of your music directing at Rivertown.
I'm just a prostitute. I go wherever.
Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, in the early years, I was almost exclusively a JPass performer. As a matter of fact, that's the whole reason that I ended up here. There are people, because I've been here long enough. I mean, I moved here in July of 2005, so I had perfect timing on when I moved here, because then I probably had to leave. But I had been coming as a performer from out of town as a guest artist to JPass ever since 1995 or so, 94, 95, before I ever moved here. And so I've known the area. I've known JPass and Dennis and all for many years, and they lived here since 2005. So most people think that I've been here for a long time, that I'm like, I mean, they know I'm not a native because I don't talk like people here, but they feel like I'm a fixture and that I've been here forever, and I suppose I have. I mean, granted, I'm probably the only JPass guest artist who ever moved to the city, but I knew from a long time ago that this was a place that I would be very comfortable and that I could be happy living here. And eventually, this is where I came up. So I'm not Jefferson Turner. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Stephen Schwartz and Alan Menken also did Disney's Pocahontas.
I was gonna say, I didn't think that was the only one. Yeah.
Yeah, but they did Pocahontas. And I will tell you, okay, I'm going to tell you my biggest pet peeve, if I may, about music directing.
I'm talking about a musical, not an animated feature, but that's okay.
Not an animated feature, no.
Yeah,
No.
all right, that's what I was talking. I was talking about a musical theater.
Yeah, to be music director of a show, and you show up at that first music rehearsal with the full ensemble, and you are about to rehearse the opening number of the show, and you ask them, okay, how many of you have listened to the cast album? And like nobody raises their hand. and I'm going, have you auditioned for the show, but you don't know, and you pretty much knew you were going to. I mean, of course, people know they're going to be in the chorus. So why don't they know all the stuff? You know, I just don't get it. Why somebody can show up to a first music rehearsal and not know any of the songs in the show? What's up with that?
Alan, I'll jump in and talk about, you were talking about the idea of being prepared. Mm-hmm. I think also one of the things as a music director that's really important, and I just think it's important in music in general, but communication is a key element with the people that you are going to work with. And one of the things I have always tried to do is when I know that I'm music directing a show is get a cast list. And, I try to be as communicative with all the people that I'm working with and tell them, make sure that there are certain things that you do. And I think that people's lives are very busy and they sometimes think that they don't always understand all the process. And especially with someone who's new, maybe someone who's young. So I always try to make sure that my casts in my preparation get an email from me prior so they know who I am and they know what I expect and they know where their resources are. As I think as technologically smart as we are, there's so many resources that sometimes we don't always know which one necessarily to go to. So that's another element.
That's why you should listen to all of them.
Right. Well, but sometimes some people don't always have that time. So I try to be very, very specific and say, do this, this, and this to start. And then if we need to branch out, we will. But I think that's an important part of being a music director too. There's an organization level.
Yeah, go ahead, Leonard.
I'd like to offer the other side of the coin to Alan's pet peeve. One of my pet peeves is a cast who has listened to the cast recording so much that they only do they do every riff, every vowel, every tone, every wrong note, every bad habit that the cast recording does.
Yeah, you almost want them to come in cold so that you can teach them sometimes the way that you interpret what needs to happen. And I think there's a great individuality when a music director does that, because then you all of a sudden go, oh, he did that with that group. Oh, I like how that sounds. I might try that next time around. So it allows for some creativity and some learning. And I think we all have to be in a position of learning until we die with this art. I just think it's an important thing.
Yeah, because when you stop learning, then you do die.
Right. Okay, so now I have a question, and I know it's a little silly, but is Sitzprobe your favorite German word?
Can I jump in here?
No.
Go ahead, Jefferson.
No. I love the SitzProbe.
Me too.
The first time where you get to hear everything. And I always
just for the sake of explaining what the Sitzprobe is, there's another name for it in Italian that I don't remember, something a la Italian something. And Donna, you probably know. But it's the first time that the actual actors who have been on stage and doing the blocking and learning all their lines get to work with the orchestra, and that's the and that's the big event. It's when everything starts to really come together. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
And
Go
you
ahead.
get to see
I love
everybody's
Zip Pro.
faces when that happens, and that's my
And-
favorite part.
Yeah.
You've been saying in the rehearsals all through the process, as you're playing the piano or somebody's playing the piano for the rehearsal, you say, okay, at this point, you're going to hear drums are going to lead you in there. So when we have the orchestra, you'll hear the drums, and the drums are going to help you. And the cast will struggle with a piece of music and struggle with something. You say, no. The clarinets are going to be playing your part with you there. And then when the sitz probe happens, and they actually hear all the orchestration, they hear all the parts and how they all work together to support the singer. That's a really fun moment. To say, I told you so. I told you were going to hear something that would help you there.
Leonard, is it the same way? I mean, you work with a rather large orchestra as Donna. I mean, is it the same thing for you when you really enjoy that moment when they get to see what you all are doing and how you bring your force of music into the piece?
Sure, and I agree with Jefferson. The Sitz Pro is my very favorite night of all the entire process, even though it can be extremely stressful, as I mentioned in my first remarks. But I usually do the big, golden age type musicals from Oklahoma. That era. That's what I love to do most. I would do it exclusively if I could. The orchestrations are so lush, and I'm kind of an old soul anyway, and I just get swept away by the tonal language of those composers and the thick, lush orchestration. And yeah, I get completely swept away by it, and I think, and so of course that's the cast, because it's just there's 28 or 25 to 30 players there. And, sometimes there's a harp, a real harp, and, and it's all very exciting. So, yeah.
And not synthesizer.
Alan, I don't know if and I think I'm correct on this, but I believe historically the sitz probe was something that everybody got really gussied up for, dressed up for, and it happened. I believe musicians were put on stage for that first rehearsal, and it was historically a big event. I would hate to have to then load into the pit.
Sitz probe actually means like seated rehearsal. That's what.
They don't usually typically do blocking or choreography. It is strictly to connect with the orchestra and the conductor and the music. But yeah.
Well, I think still in the opera world, very definitely, that night is always a night that you come dressed in your Sunday best. I think still you just don't show in the opera world. You still don't show up without looking well presented, because this is the opportunity to really sing with the orchestra and not, be able to see what your voice can do, So, yeah.
And to impress all the chorus people.
So let me Alan, let me just ask a little bit about as I mentioned, you were at Rivertown. A lot of the shows at Rivertown, come packaged as far as the music goes, but you actually listed as a music director. So what do you actually do to make those shows happen? And what is it? Because they're working with live orchestras. Sometimes you're working with canned material. So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, there are pros and cons to canned music, even though personally I count them all as cons, because I prefer the live orchestra. That's just how it is. That's my crusade. But one of the things I remembered is that, or have learned, is that there's a remarkable amount of technological availability. I mean, you think, you have to come in at exactly the right time, otherwise you're going to be behind the music. There are things that you can do where you can create a loop where there is a vamp, and then turn that thing into a thing that can happen as many times as you need it to happen, but you have to have a really good person on the other end pushing that button, who's running the thing they call QLab, and they're running it from a laptop, and so they have to be sure to cue it in exactly the right time. Like, for example, sometimes in a musical phrase, you'll have, say, 2 vocal pickups that are a cappella, and then the music starts on the downbeat with whatever syllable they are uttering at that moment. And so there's the timing issue of when, you have to be, they're going, I am going to the thing, and they have to be sure they push the button at the right time. So it's all a timing issue, really, when it comes down to it. And there are a lot of things you can add and layer in. So there are its benefits. And certainly, well, I mean, it has its benefits, but, don't mistake me. I love me a live orchestra.
Yeah, no, and would that we could have live music for everything, but I understand there's a cost factor that really makes it prohibitive for a lot of people, and I've never been unforgiving in that regard, but I have stated on more than one occasion, and I usually get a jab from Mr. Rucker, but I always believe that they do great work over at Rivertown, not to be denigrated in any way. Wonderful voice work, wonderful blocking, wonderful choreography. And I said, I only wish that I could have heard it with a live orchestra. And of course, I understand that, unless I'm ready to essentially bring the orchestra in for them, I'm not able to do that. Natalie, do you work, Natalie, with some canned music too from time to time, or are you strictly a live music person?
The main stage shows that I've done, I think, have all been live. Mostly when I'm working with the canned music, it is for like summers at Tulane when I'm doing the Little Lyric and the Junior Lyric camp. It's like the MTI Junior shows or the MTI Kid shows, because at Little Lyric and Junior Lyric we're performing in the small recital hall that's next to Dixon, and there ain't no room in there for any real, group of live instruments. And that's, I think, also a budget issue as well. And we can't mic children in there easily. So, having live musicians is difficult. So I would say most of my canned show experiences have been schools and camps.
Gotcha. So,
can I throw something in?
Go ahead.
I've done both. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to jog my brain here, but I'm just sitting here thinking that there was something that I've done canned. But something for us to think about going forward is that a lot of the vocal students are coming in and auditioning with canned music because they can find the backgrounds. And, I've had students come in with very, very good backgrounds.
Yes.
And the skill sets that provides them with to be able to do that, I think it's an excellent learning experience.
Yes. I've had.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I've had plenty of parents come up to me after a, Little or Junior Lyric performance and, say, why can't we have, even a small combo? And I believe for MTI Kids, those parts aren't available. I'm not even sure if they're available for the junior shows. So it would mean, a lot of work from a music directing standpoint of creating parts. But, and I butted it on Donna now. I forget my original point, but oh no, those a lot of those canned tracks now, because of the technology that Alan had mentioned, are amazing.
Yes.
If we did Shrek last year or the year before, a little combo would not have done that justice.
No.
Like a canned show can. And I am with you, Alan. I am. Don't tell me you're doing a show that can have live musicians and doesn't have live musicians. That's all I'll say.
The interesting thing about that, Natalie, on top of that, is what are we doing with RMS keyboards? We are doing exactly that. And that is clearly that's the way of the future in the sense of us using keyboards that put in all these different sounds. So we might have an orchestra, but we don't really have an orchestra. Right. We've got all this technological stuff that's going on behind. There's a real balancing act that I think is still taking place between live performance and technology right now.
And let me just add, it's also a problem on Broadway. A number of shows that might have featured an orchestra of 22 or 25 or 26.
Absolutely.
Now you've got 11 people in the pit, max.
Right.
And in some shows, not even that many. And so a lot of the musicians are out of work as a result of, you know, the technology which can do that. Jefferson, I might ask you, because you've had a lot of experience as a music director on piano. I mean, I remember it seems to be Ragtime. You did the entire Ragtime on piano, which you know, that's an amazing feat to be, you know, the solo artist instrument, if you will, for that show. And of course, you music directed Fun Home, which is a very small show in terms of the orchestra, but it has some beautiful orchestrations, and you were able to carry those off. You tend to do, and again, the same thing with Ricky Graham's shows, a lot of things that are piano only. Do you find that you get a lot more pleasure in doing those more intimate kind of shows, or is it something that is different in some way, and that you're not really able to compare the two?
Oh, it's the difference between doing a solo show and conducting an ensemble is it's two different animals. Because I enjoy doing the solo shows where I'm just on piano, because then I'm able to react in the moment. If we're holding for a laugh, or if somebody drops a line or something crazy happens, then I can just roll with it and adjust and make the music work and fit for the moment. You can't do that with an ensemble, because you all have to stick to the page and all be playing the same thing.
And I guess having to contend with Ricky Graham is another story, right? Or Varla, right?
Ricky Varla, Becky Allen.
Okay, you got me there.
She's wonderful to see on stage. She keeps me on my toes when I'm playing the piano for her.
All right, time to ask the question. What is everybody having tonight for their drink? Donna, we'll start with you. What did you have?
Me?
Yeah.
Iced tea, dear. If I drank, you wouldn't be having an interview.
She's the good music director.
Yeah,
I'm a good music director.
Do you at least have a fancy straw to go with it, or is it straight?
Oh, I have my nice frozen cold mug.
All right, very nice, very nice. Alan, what are you drinking tonight? Alan,
What am I drinking tonight?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, the thing that's in my hand is a Starbucks triple shot mocha.
Very good.
But and that's because, well, I did have a couple of shots of vodka right before I came home. But I have a friend coming over later.
Okay, all right. No doubt you're feeling the pain, literally. All right. All right. Leonard, what are you having tonight?
Well, you asked too late in the process. I had the cutest little drink, but now it's empty.
No, I'm sorry.
I don't drink, but I made up something that I like to call the Alan Smason.
Oh.
And it's elderflower and mineral water and 3 blackberries. But I finished it now, so you were delicious.
Thank you so much. Jefferson, what did you have tonight?
I have plain old boring Dr. Pepper, but I have it in my Buc-ee's glass that I got from Buc-ee's in Baytown in Texas.
And Natalie?
You can't see it, but I am enjoying some peach fizzy, refreshing summer alcoholic beverage from Trader Joe's.
It's
good.
Alcohol, is it vodka? Is it vodka?
Oh, it's wine. It's like a sparkling wine.
So, and everybody who's in the room
Bartles and James
got to see me make a Boulevardier. This is a takeoff on a Negroni, and it's made with bourbon instead of gin. Still made with Campari and still made with sweet vermouth. Although the bourbon is a little bit more than you put in with the gin. So, salute, as they say.
Cheers.
And, I want to
more is better.
I want to. I guess, you know, there's a bunch of stuff that we could probably talk about, but I'd like to get a little serious. We've had, you know, several weeks of some real soul searching going on in this country, talking about how do we increase the ranks of our music directors to be more considerate of diversity and inclusion. Today, for instance, we had a landmark Supreme Court case that was decided, which essentially I think will mean that LGBTQIA, whatever the extra initials, etc., that they are now completely safe at work and can know that they they are just as valuable and just as treasured and cannot be discarded, by somebody in an office for no reason. And so my feeling is that we are at a crossroads. But one of the things that's in doing this show tonight is that this is a very, to my way of thinking, diverse group, and yet we do still have a long way to go. And I'm wondering if any of you would like to comment a little bit on where we should be, increasing our efforts to make sure that there are more people represented who are diverse within the music director ranks.
Because we're all teachers. There is a lot that has to happen very early in your life to build you up to doing the work of music directing, because you have to have a background in classical music at some level. You have to be able to read music. You have to be able to play an instrument. You have to know the voice and be able to sing. And so all music directors that I know have a whole lot of different things that they are good at and that they've had to train and learn to do. And there's just a pipeline issue of where are the opportunities for people early in their life if they are able to engage in the stuff that you can only do when you're very young and learning an instrument and learning music, learning to read music.
Yeah, Natalie, go ahead.
I was very lucky. We are all educators, and I think it's part of our job to find those opportunities for our kids and to see some budding talent coming out and to help foster that. I was very lucky in 10th grade. I will never forget. My choir director loved to use student accompanists, and I had studied piano since I was 5, and had never. I guess I knew that world existed, but one day at the beginning of the year in choir, she said, our accompanist graduated. Who has ever thought about trying? And I don't think my hand shot right up, but I raised my hand that day, and I accompanied the choir all through high school, and chose the college I attended for both of my degrees because I was told I could accompany all those choirs. And that is a path that certainly can lead into music directing. But Jefferson's right. It's for some that are lucky that can get there, later in life, without, so much training. There is some, I guess, natural talent that goes into it. But if you don't have those opportunities to start training and to realize that you have that ability from a young age, it is hard. It is hard. I think I look at my piano students now, and none of them have really expressed interest in going into music, but I have a few that could very well do it. And so I'm starting to kind of plant those seeds of let me tell you about this awesome gig I had today, or I invite them to concerts and shows to show them what's possible, because I feel like there's still also that reservation of being a working musician. And going to school for the arts is, still somewhat poo-pooed on a little bit. And I'm lucky that's what pays my bills. But Jefferson's absolutely right. Like you have to have people give you those opportunities from a very young age.
Leonard, you and Donna are on the college level. Anything that we should be looking to do on a college level? Because Jefferson obviously works with NOCA, that's high school gifted students. And again, a lot of the gifted students, I'm going to say, probably may end up with careers of their own that are not necessarily leading them to be, on stage or whatever, that they may be solo artists. A lot of people have come out of NOCA who are immensely talented. We know that are stage names that come right to mind, from Harry Connick Jr. on up. But the whole point, what I'm saying though, is in terms of on the college level, are there things that we should be doing more of, or that we are trying to do now to increase the amount of diversion and inclusion within the university students?
Leonard, I'm gonna let you answer this.
Do you mean as musical directors, or?
Well, obviously, like Jefferson said, if they don't get the opportunities, they can't become music directors. But are there things that obviously, I mean, if we talk about even like hip hop culture, would perhaps concentrating more on the way musicals have gone in more recent years, dealing with such as Hamilton, In the Heights, a number of different shows that have accented that. Is that something that we might be taking up more of in the college curriculum?
This I think so, but this is more of a this would be more of a question for Michael McKelvey, because he teaches. That's what he teaches at Tulane. I teach a classical choral program and private voice. So in terms of like the musical theater realm, he does concentrate a lot on the newer shows, and Summer Lyric at least, and I know other places too. People are much more, and we are much more cognizant of colorblind casting and making sure that there's a balance, within the casting of the shows. I mean, and it's a really difficult world we live in right now, with all that's happening just recently with the racial injustice that's been going on. I mean, as a choir director, I even struggle with, I've even stopped performing spirituals, because I just don't want to do anything that would send the message that, oh, look at me, profiteering in some way off of your pain. That's not my intent, but it's something that we all have to really think about, not only inclusion, but also the way we, the output that we have and the way that we represent ourselves with regard to the sensitivity to racial justice nowadays. I know that was kind of far afield, but
one of the things that's kind of missing from the discussion so far is the fact that probably for all of us that are on here today, we didn't study to be a music director. Music director came out of other things that we were doing. Yeah. And it's only been in recent years that there has been a music direction degree. At the college level, I think at Webster University has a music direction degree, but otherwise it was very much an outgrowth of the ability to do other things that led me into music directing. But I definitely wanted to be a music director because I love the art of it and very much wanted to do it, but there was no course to study for it.
Fantastic. Well, Donna, you want to say something, add to that or not?
I agree with, I think all of us know that we are in a place where we have to open our eyes. And we have to listen and we have to hear. I think one of the things that I have always worked to try to do, and I hope I've carried this out, is that, I as a music director have never been the person who has chosen whoever's there for the show, who's ever doing the show. It's never been my role. However, what I always work to do within the confines of any music directing is that everyone within that cast needs to be treated with fairness, needs to be heard, needs to be understood, needs to have the skills that I hopefully bring that more than anything makes them look the best that they can possibly look on stage. Because when they look the best, the show succeeds and I succeed. And that means that I have to work with every single person down to the smallest the smallest role to the biggest role. And I've always said that my chorus is one of the most important parts of my shows anyway, but every person, hopefully, that I have worked with in my lifetime, I have treated fairly and with respect and want to continue to do so. And part of that means listening to the dialogue right now to see how I can make that better. And I think we each have to do that in whatever role. Well, what can we do to make this better? What can we do to understand? What can we do to listen?
Yeah. All right, I'm going to try to end on a nice note. I would like to have just a quick response, just sort of whether or not it was the most difficult or the most challenging, and therefore the most exhilarating after it was all over. What was your favorite or most difficult role that you did as a music director for whatever musical, and why? Donna?
Oh, it had to have been Hunchback.
It was Hunchback. Okay.
And of all things, for being a Disney piece, but there was a level of difficulty to it that was, it was just expansive, and very, very exciting. If there was a second behind it, it would have been West Side Story.
Yeah, and I did. By the way, shout out that particular thing was probably the best thing JPAS had done.
Yeah,
so I quite heartily agree that I thought it was just amazing. Alan, in terms of your music direction, what has been either the most difficult and the most challenging, or perhaps the most exhilarating and the most pleasurable? Either one, tick whichever way you want.
I get to pick one.
Yeah, we don't have but an hour show, Alan. Thank you very much.
That's right. Okay, so I'm going to pick. So the one I'm going to pick is going to be the one that was the most difficult playing experience, because I did not conduct. I played the piano for the production. It was, I can't remember what year it was, but it was some few years ago. It was Jesse Terrebonne and Rich Arnold did a production of John and Jen, written by Andrew Lippa.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And so I played the piano, and it's written for a piano and percussion and a cellist.
Okay.
And so we did it at Le Chat Noir, and it was a great show. I didn't know anything about it until they asked me to do it. And it was, and the music was great. It was a marvelous show, just 2 hours. But
okay, that's it.
That music. Okay, I had to have a page turner. The only time I've ever had a page turner was for that show.
All right, Leonard, what was for you? And we'll get back to Andrew Lippa when I get ready to close. I'll talk about him. Go ahead, Leonard. What was either the greatest, most exhilarating, or the most difficult piece that you had to tackle?
Well, I think my most favorite show ever to conduct was Oklahoma at Summer Lyric. And funnily enough, Rodgers and Hammerstein, there are some well-honored, time-honored songs of theirs that I absolutely hate. And I don't always love their tonal language and even some of their lyrics. But that show for me is just the top, and especially Many a New Day. I just love the show just immensely.
Yeah.
All right, Jefferson, your turn.
It was the most, in recent memory, the most difficult and also exhilarating once it was through with at Summer Lyric this past summer with Matilda, and it was a challenge. We mentioned RMS keyboards earlier. That is digital patches for a keyboard so that it has all different sounds. And the conductor's part actually had a whole lot of those sound changes in it. So it was I hit a moment where I thought I'm never going to be hired again, because I can't coordinate all the things that need to be coordinated at this moment, and I had to triage at the last minute to make it through, and then it ended up being a wonderful show and a great experience. But right. Matilda last summer.
And Natalie, your choice.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. The most exhilarating. I wasn't even the music director, but I had to fill in for McKelvey when we did Something Rotten a few months ago. So thankfully, Donna came in to save my butt, and I jumped up on the podium, and that was the most in the zone moment, 2.5 hours I've ever had in my life.
Great.
But I will say,
I'm going to tell you otherwise. She did a great job.
It was so much fun. The most difficult was probably the JPass production of Goodnight Moon. Yes, there is a musical about the children's book. It came with a keyboard score. But we wanted percussion, so my poor percussionist had to make things up on his own. And there was a ballet sequence, I believe, but there wasn't any music, so I had to pull in Claire de Lune and learn that to put into the show. And then to make matters worse, my dad passed away during the show, so I had to take everything I had done and teach it to a new pianist to come in and finish the run. So that was stress beyond stress.
I just want to thank all of y'all. You're wonderful. I'm going to tell you, one of my favorite scores recently that I've gotten to know is the Wild Party, Andrew Lippa. Something to think about.
Yes.
And also, I don't know if they'll ever bring it back again, but the Light in the Piazza. That had to be one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever heard. Again, I know they've done it at JPS a couple of times, but beautiful. But, you know, I keep telling McKelvey, one of these days, Mac and Mabel is coming. I got to see Mac and Mabel.
Oh, Mac and Mabel.
Yeah.
You know, so you all plant the seed, somebody or other. Please, please, please tell Mac and Mabel. Jerry Herman's dead now, and he's going to roll over when that happens, I guess. But we'll see what happens.
Oh,
In the
my
meantime,
Lord. Love me
thank you
some
very
Jerry
much. Donna Clavijo, we want to thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for being here. Again, Alan Payne, thank you for being here as well. Natalie True, we appreciate your being here. Jefferson Turner, keep on keeping on. Thank you. And Leonard, as always, we'll see you hopefully at Summer Lyric next year. But again, thank you so much for all that you do. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our music directors panel. They did a great job, and I want to thank them all for being there a little late, but there's our music cue. We're going to have to get out of here. Coming up this Friday, don't forget Sean Patterson will be our guest at 8 o'clock on Friday. Next Monday night, it's going to be a live stream reading of Brick by John Broder. That's going to star Bob Eads and Harold Gervais. And I believe Javier Juarez, I believe, I have to go check out the name, but I believe that's it. He's going to play the waiter. In any event, that's going to be coming up on the 22nd. And then a week from then, the first of the trilogy by John Bigonnet of Rising Water will be on. We're going to have hopefully Mold and Shotgun. I'm not quite sure what order they're going to go. We hope that they'll be in the order that they came out. We'll find out about that later. Again, for the NOLA Theater Talk Show, this is Alan Smason wishing you and yours a very good night. And thank you very much for being with us. And again, we hope that that you'll see you around, and I'll see you at the theater.